Hey everybody, my name is Handsome Dragon, and I am part of the lore community of Destiny. If you've been on Twitter, Reddit, or Bungie.net in the last 24 to 48 hours, you'll know that we are a passionate community. There have been a few videos on this topic already, and I highly suggest watching them if you haven't already. I'll put the links in the description of this video. So let's get started. What does No Grimoire and in-game lore mean to us as gamers, and what does it mean to us as lore content creators? I will attempt to answer those questions and hopefully express why this community has been in a bit of a disarray and why we fear for the future of our content. Let's begin with what was said. From a Forbes article, contributor Eric Kane wrote, "So I asked Bungie's world lead Steve Cotton if Grimoire cards would play a role in the game, and he came back with a resounding no. The answer to that question is no, and the reason it's no is because we want to put the lore in the game," Cotton told me. "We want people to be able to find the lore. All the story is told through the adventures. It's told through the characters in the world, it's told through the campaign, and it's told through scannables you find throughout the world." So I'm going to go ahead and start with the good. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of good, and it's really good. In-game lore is something that all Destiny players have been hoping for, asking for, demanding for nearly the last 3 years. The lack of story in the original game has haunted the game's reviews, even after Bungie made great strides and changes in later DLC packs and expansions to the Destiny universe. Go back and read any Destiny review after its release, and the number one critique on every single one is lack of story and in-game storytelling, blaming the Grimoire outside the game as the culprit and the reason why the in-game story was so weak. We all have those friends, for me, nearly all of them, who say, "I'd care about the lore of Destiny if it was in the game," or "I'd care about the lore of Destiny if I didn't have to leave Destiny to see it." They are correct. The lore of Destiny absolutely should be in the game, and having to go outside of the game to find and discover the depth of the universe and the connections made between characters and events left many, the majority, of Guardians in the dark when it came to the lore. Hence the popular phrase, "Destiny has no story." We all know that isn't true, but we only know that's not true because we took the time to go outside the game and read and research the Grimoire to discover the richness that is the Destiny universe. Let me say it again. In-game lore for the game of Destiny is an amazing change to the game, and as a vanilla Destiny gamer, I can't wait to dive into the living universe of Destiny and see my favorite stories told to me in-game. I can't wait. In addition to that, in-game lore has the potential to greatly increase the amount of players their content can impact for lore content creators, as the number of Guardians who will have an interest in the lore will surely increase, meaning more subs, more viewers, more listens, which leads to more lore. All good things. Here's another quote from Destiny 2 project lead Mark Noseworthy from a Game Informer interview with Matt Miller. "But in no way is it our intent to get rid of deep lore in the game. We just want to put it in the game. We want to tell the story of the places. We want to really flesh out the story of the world. A lot of the stuff that was in the Grimoire before, we want just regular people to play and encounter in the game. For instance, after playing for hours in the European Dead Zone, they can clearly tell what happened there." So let's expand a little on that. "But in no way is it our intent to get rid of deep lore in the game. We just want to put it in the game." That's an amazing statement, and one that, as a lore nerd, I'm very excited to hear. But at the same time, it kind of worries me, and this is why. Currently, there is a ton of deep lore within Destiny's Grimoire database. These stories are told over multiple cards, multiple items. Take, for example, the Books of Sorrow. To write this story, author Seth Dickinson wrote nearly 50 Grimoire cards depicting the story of Oryx and his sisters, Savathun and Xivu of Wrath. It's the Hive origin story. It's the Taken origin story. Within, connections with the Elixni, the Fallen, the Traveler, the Worm Gods, Ahamkara, and possibly even the Vex are made. I fully trust Bungie to tell a great story, and I believe they can pull off the deep lore in game statement. But I don't see how they could ever bring something as impactful, as dynamic, as enriched, as deep as the story within the Books of Sorrow. Maybe they can, and I'm wrong, but so much can be lost between seeing written words and seeing a live-action animation or listening to dialogue. Which tells the deeper story, the Lord of the Rings movies or the books? In my opinion, the books hands down. Which isn't a knock on the movies, which were fantastic, but a movie just can't tell the same story, and it can't reach the same levels of depth and understanding as reading a book can. Another fear is that the deep lore will get watered down, simplified, in order to appeal to the masses. In that quote by Mark Noseworthy, he mentions he wants just regular people to just play and encounter the lore in the game. But if this means that the lore lacks the depth required to really understand and to put the pieces together, then, as Mylan Game says, you don't listen to us to recite the lore. Which, that may be true of My Name is Bife, but not for us, not for me. You listen to us for our opinions, our interpretations of the lore. If the lore becomes black and white, if it becomes easy to understand, then you won't need people like me to give my interpretation. So let me try to wrap this up with what the big issue is and why it's an issue. To do that, I want to go into a little detail on how a show is produced. And a little side note, when I tell this and I say I really mean Anon Pig, because he's the one who does the research for our podcast at the moment. But bear with me. We pick a topic. Let's say we choose Osiris. I then go to ishtarcollective.net and type in Osiris to pull up the hundreds and hundreds of items, transcripts, grimoire cards, ghost scans, and quest steps. I then select the pertinent items and go through one by one, reading them and selecting the items and cards I want to use for the show. These are then copy and pasted onto a doc file and organized to form a fluid episode. This is about a 2 to 4 hour job, depending on the topic, and could be more. Of the things mentioned above, none of the in-game aspects are automatically pulled into the Ishtar Collective database using the API. Transcripts from strikes, story missions, ghost scans are all transcribed by different members of the community, which, as you may expect, means this information takes much longer to get. We still don't even have all of the transcripts yet, and we can never know for sure if we've got everything. Are we 100% positive we got all the ghost scans? Did we miss one? Was there an alternate ending that we never unlocked for a story mission? That is why the statement of all the lore, all the deep lore being in the game is a bit worrisome for us in the community, because currently their API does not automatically pull the data for in-game lore, which means anything in-game must be input manually. This may not sound terrible to all of you. What's the big deal? So you have to manually type out some missions, some scannables, no big deal, right? Wrong. Remember the process I explained above? Remember the 2 to 4 hour window of research required to prepare an episode? If the API doesn't support the in-game lore, and everything in-game must now be input manually, that 2 to 4 hours becomes 2 to 4, 5 to 7 days. YouTubers who put out a video every day would be lucky to put one out each week. Podcasts that record weekly would be lucky to become a bi-weekly show. All in all, it would mean less content from us, your lore content creators, which in turn would likely mean less interest in our content from you, the lore community. The most confusing part for me is that the grimoires seem to do exactly what Bungie hoped it would do. In an early interview with a Bungie employee, it was stated that part of the purpose of using the grimoire system was to bring players together and to help build a community around it. This is exactly what happened. So to now move away from the grimoire seems to be an odd choice, without additional information on the API support. Now let's remember, API support is the main issue. As long as we have support from the API and pulling the data from the game and allowing us to collect and organize as we currently do, then this all is a bunch of worrying for nothing. Bones, you're right. Right now, we don't know how they will bring the API forward, so we can't say for sure that this is the death of lore channels, because we don't know what is going to happen. But the point of this is to bring the discussion to the forefront, and most of all to try and bridge the gap between the Destiny community right now there seems to be a little bit of a divide between the lore communities and the non-lore communities, and it's because each is seeing it from their own perspective. My hope with this video was to try and show both perspectives. So to recap, in-game lore, good. Outside game lore, good. No outside game lore, not good. But in-game lore, still good. Thanks for listening, everyone. This was my first official YouTube video, so leave me feedback in the comments section and drop a subscribe and a like if anything I said made sense. So I'm hoping at least one thing made sense. Anyways,